is all about redox reactions. So it is expected that at the end of this lesson, we'll be able to explain what a redox reaction is or what redox reactions are, identify the substances oxidized and reduced in a redox reaction, and that will be able to balance chemical equations or redox reactions using the half reaction method. So in this picture, we see a phone, cell phones, different types of cell phones. We have here laptops, portable music players. I'm not sure if napay mo gamit ani karon. Then we have Bluetooth speakers, mga gadgets which are very important these days. We have gaming devices. And then we have cameras, no? So, unsay common ani nila nga mga gadgets. So, these gadgets operate with the use of batteries. Mo function sila even if wala sila gisaksak, kay naa sila'y batteries. Now, these batteries function because of chemistry, because of chemical reactions. Now, the type of chemical reactions that make these batteries work are called redox reactions or oxidation reduction reactions or reduction oxidation reactions. So, redox reactions. So, it's called redox. It's called redox because again of reduction and oxidation reactions, wherein reduction is the, okay, so this time we'll be talking about electrons. Is the gaining of electrons in a chemical reaction, and the oxidation is the loss of electrons in a chemical reaction. Now, how are these electrons gained or lost? O kinsa man ang mo gain or lose og electrons? Now, we recall nga, di ba, in a, for example, now we recall nga ang atom kay, di ba, there is a na ay nucleus, unya na diri dapita ang electron. So inside the nucleus kay ang mga positively charged nga protons og ang neutral nga neutrons, unya na diri dapita ang mga electrons. Now there is attraction between the protons in the nucleus and the electrons. So, di ba, positive and negative, they attract. So, na force of attraction ana nila. The closer the electron is to the nucleus, the stronger the force of attraction. But the farther the electron is from the nucleus, of course, weaker ang attraction. Kaning nasa pinakagawas, these are the valence electrons which can easily be transferred from one atom to another. Now, an atom could be neutral. So, a neutral atom, kung moingon gani ka og neutral atom, meaning the number of protons is equal to the number of electrons. So, di ba, positive man. Positive ang proton, equal siya sa electron. So, kung ang neutral gani ang atom, meaning ang charge kay 0. So, in the picture here, in the figure, we see a sodium atom, and we can see that a sodium atom has 11 protons and 11 electrons. So, nganong 11 man? If you look at the periodic table, the atomic number of sodium is 11, and the atomic number class represents the number of protons in the atom. So, protons gina siya, and the number of protons in an atom can never be changed. So, there are 11 protons and then 11 ka-electrons, so meaning this is neutral. But, 1 electron, sodium can lose 1 electron. Pwede niya ihatag sa lain. So, when sodium loses 1 electron, so nanay 11 ka protons gihapon because that cannot be changed. Ang electrons raman ang pwede ma-transfer. So, kay natangtangan na siya og electron, so 10 na lang. So, asa na may mas daghan? Mas daghan na ang proton. Pilay difference? 1. So, therefore, na-form ang sodium ion. So, if the neutral atom either gains or loses nga electron, ma-form siya og ion, a charged particle. So, it's either the charge is positive or negative. Now, if it's positively charged, then the particle or the ion is specifically called a cation. So, ma-form siya when an atom loses an electron. So, kung mulose si sodium og electron, kaning na-lose nga electron, kay tanawa, 10 na lang ang ihang electron. So, kaning na-lose nga electrons, dapat na ini dawat ani. So, for example, chlorine. So, chlorine has an atomic number nga 17. So, kay 17, meaning na ay 17 ka protons ug na ay 17 ka electrons equal. It's neutral nga atom. So, si chlorine, pwede siya mo-gain og electron. Pila ka electron iya mga gain? So, kintahay dire, isa ka electron ang iyang i-gain. So, mas daghan na ang electron. Mahimo na siyang 18. So, nanubra na ang negative charge mo ng Cl negative. And that's the chloride ion. So, it's negatively charged kung ang atom, ang neutral atom, mo gain og electron. And that ion, and that charged particle, nga negative ang charge, it's called an anion. So, an atom is neutral, 0 ang charge. So, pwede siya mo lose og electron para mo form og sodium ion, and pwede siya mo gain og electron to form an anion. So, that's how ions are formed. So, aside from batteries, redox reactions also happen like corrosion or the rusting of metal. So, dili ra siya specifically to batteries mahitabo. Ang redox, pwede sad siya sa rusting of metals, mo-involved sad na siya transfer of electrons, or even in the browning of food. So, if you notice natin mga magpanita, for example, og apple, or mangga, or saging. Usually, it's apple nga to ma-observe, no? And then, we just leave it on the table, and after a few, maybe minutes or hours, we can see nga ni brown na siya. So, it is said that it has undergone oxidation. Okay? So, let's learn more about redox reactions. So, unsa na siyang redox reaction? So, a redox reaction is a type of chemical reaction wherein, so again, there is a transfer of electrons. So kani siya nga lesson class, ang atong focus diri kay ang electrons. Okay? Asa man, transfer of electrons from one substance to another, and unsa may mahitabo kung naay transfer of electrons, there is a change causing a change in their oxidation states. So, unsa ng oxidation states? Dapat naka-recall ta unsa ng oxidation state. Now, the term redox is used because the reaction is composed, so as I said ganiha, of two simultaneous chemical reactions. So, unsa ning duha ka simultaneous chemical reactions? These are the reduction and oxidation nga reaction. In these two simultaneous reactions, we must remember, sa atong hinumduman, that when one loses an electron, another substance must gain that lost electron. So, dili siya pwede magic nga mawala lagkalit ang electron. So, kung naay nihatag, kung naay nawagtangan og electron, dapat naay nakadawat ato nga electron. So, like for example, here in the figure, so we have a pentagon and a square. So, the pentagon contains an electron. And the square does not have an electron. Pentagon gives its electron to the square. And after the reaction, so si pentagon na sad ang walay electron, unya si square na ang naay electron. So ang kadong substance nga mohatag og electron, it is said to be nga ni undergo siya og oxidation. It is oxidized. And kadtong substance nga nidawat og electron, it is said to be reduced. It has undergone reduction, meaning it has been reduced. So naay nihatag ug naay nidawat. So it's oxidation and reduction, and these two reactions, they always go together. One cannot exist without the other. Okay? The reduction, it's a chemical reaction that involves the gaining of electrons. Reduction, there is a gain of electrons by one of the atoms involved in the chemical reaction between two substances. Kung ni-gain og electrons, so we must remember nga kani si electrons kay negatively charged. So kung mo-gain siya og electron, what will happen to the charge? Mas mahimo siyang negative. It becomes more negatively charged, and therefore its oxidation number will decrease. So the substance which gained electrons has been reduced, and the substance where the electron comes from is called the reducing agent. So ato ni hisgutan later. Ngano na siya, asa na siyang reducing agent. On the other hand, oxidation. So oxidation is a chemical reaction that involves the losing of electrons by one of the atoms involved in the chemical reaction between two substances. When the atom loses electrons, so may mahitabo, natangtangan man siya negative. So, it becomes more positively charged, no? Ang substance. And its oxidation number kay mo increase. Kay mo positively charged, mas mo positively charged man siya. So, its oxidation number increases. The substance which lost electrons has been oxidized, and the substance where the electron goes is called the oxidizing agent. Okay? Oxidizing agent, reducing agent. So, ito ni, ang substance where the electron comes from. Asa man gikan ang substance? Asa man gikan ng electron? Gikan sa reducing agent. Kinsa man ning reducing agent? Muni siya ang natangtangan og electron. And kung matangtang ang electron from isa ka substance, meaning it is undergone oxidation. So, kaning reducing agent, this is the oxidized substance. And the substance where the electron goes, kinsa may asa may padung, ang electron mo adto sa substance nga mo undergo og reduction kadtong modawat sa electron. So kaning oxidizing agent, this is the reduced substance. So balik ta sa picture, meaning kani di ay si pentagon diri nga ni undergo oxidation, mo ni siya ang reducing agent. Siya ang hinungdan nga kana si square mo undergo og reduction. So it's the reducing agent causing this square nga substance to undergo reduction. And kaning ni undergo og reduction, siya hinungdan nga numulos ni siya og electron. So that is the oxidizing agent ang ni undergo og reduction. Okay? So, igpili nanyo. For example, mayroon ko nga class, you determine the reducing and the oxidizing agent. So, the reducing and the oxidizing agent will always be found on the reactant side of the reaction. Never sa product. It's always here on the left side. Yung pagpili. And also, ang substance na oxidize or reduce is also on the reactant side of the chemical reaction. Alright? So, as a summary, so oxidation, there is an increase in the oxidation number because there is a loss of electrons, and the substance that is oxidized is the reducing agent, and most of the time, ang particle nga mo undergo oxidation are metals. Metals tend to lose electrons so that they become, the oxidation number becomes, increases, and the acronym that we can recall para may numdum ta kung unsay mahitabo sa oxidation is here, this one. O stands for oxidation, I meaning there is an increase in the oxidation number, and L meaning there is a loss of electrons. So for reduction, there is a decrease in the oxidation number, and there is a decrease in the oxidation number because there is a gain of electrons. Mas managhan ang negative nga charge. So the reduced substance is the oxidizing agent, and most of the time ang substance nga mo-undergo reduction kay metals, non-metals. So they're good oxidizing agents. They undergo reduction, and when the substance, diba, undergoes reduction, and so may mahitabo, it becomes more negatively charged ang iyahang oxidation number. So R, reduction, D, decrease in the oxidation number, and G stands for gain of electrons. So the oxidized substance is the substance that loses electrons. It's the reducing agent. And the reduced substance is the substance that gains electrons. It is the oxidizing agent. So, dili na nato kalimtan. Now, here in the figure, so we can see that we have substance A and substance B. And these are the oxidation numbers. So, muna siya ang charge, meaning 0. Ang pasabot sa 0, meaning equal ang number of electrons and protons. It's neutral. So, substance A, substance B, they are neutral. But, si A kuno kay mulus og electron, meaning it will undergo oxidation. Ni-undergo mo siya oxidation, meaning it is the reducing agent. Anong reducing agent man siya? Siya ang mukos ni B nga mo undergo reduction. And when B undergoes reduction, meaning there is a gain of electrons, kay siya may mudawat sa lulus ni A. Siya mo gain sa electron. Okay? So, B is the oxidizing agent. So that, because A loses electron, tangtangan siya isa ka electron, mas daghan na ang positive. So, it's positive 1. Isa raman. So, positive 1. B, kay mudawat man siya isa ka electron, so mas daghan na yung negative. So, mahimo siyang negative 1. So, simultaneous ang pag-lose o pag-gain og electron. And the reduction, again, reduction and oxidation, they always go together. So, the lost electron, the electron lost by A was gained by substance B. Substance A was oxidized and substance B was reduced. So remember that electrons are negatively charged. So when substance A lost an electron, its oxidation number was increased. And when substance B gained an electron, its oxidation number decreased. Substance A was oxidized. It's the reducing agent. It caused B to undergo reduction. And substance B was reduced. It is the oxidizing agent. It caused A to undergo oxidation. So this is just a summary of everything that I said a while ago. Okay. Now, an oxidation-reduction reaction, therefore, so ano to pagkahibaw nga redox reaction, dito ang nahitabo, ang chemical reaction. We can identify it by how? By keeping track of the electrons transferred. So, keeping track of the electron gain by the substance being reduced and keeping track of the electrons lost by the substance oxidized. But how do we keep track of the electrons transferred? Unsaon man? How? By, this can be done by assigning oxidation numbers to the elements involved in the reaction. Assigning oxidation numbers. Okay. Thing here is, unsa ni siyang oxidation number? An oxidation number is the total number of electrons that an atom will either gain or lose in order to form a chemical bond with another atom. Dili pasabot class nga kung mo-lose or gain, nga kung pwede mo-lose or gain og electron ang isa ka atom nga bisag pila na lang ang pwede niya ma-lose or gain. So, naara siya pwede nga ma-lose or gain. It's either isa ra kabuk ihang pwede ma-lose, or duha baron, or lima, or unom. It depends upon the element. It depends upon the nature of the element or the atom. So here we have two elements. So we have calcium and oxygen, and we see numbers here as superscripts. So for calcium, we have +2, and for oxygen, we have -2. So kani siya nga mga numbers, these are the oxidation numbers. Pasabot ani siya class, si neutral atom nga calcium, nganong +2 man, nganong na positive man siya. So kung gikan sa 0, kung neutral, 0 ang oxidation number ni calcium, meaning pwede siya mo lose og duha ka electrons. Meaning diri dapita mas daghan na ang iyahang protons. So ang ihang pwede mo lose siya duha ka electron. Here the oxidation number of oxygen is 2, meaning pwede siya mudawat og duha ka electrons. Okay? Now, unsa na to pagkaibaw ani nila mga numbers, nga oxidation numbers. So we can usually predict the oxidation number of an element based on its position in the periodic table. So, di ba, mumani siya mga groups ang column. So, here in group 1, the first column, these are the alkali metals, followed by the alkaline earth metals, and then we have the transition metals. So, kung diring direpita sa left, these are the metals, and on the right side, these are the non-metals. Tendency is metals will lose electron. Mapagbigay ang metals, they will lose electrons. That's why when they lose electrons, they form cations. They become more positively charged. So mo form siya cations, positive. The tendency of the non-metals is that they tend to accept electrons, so they form anions. However, kaning last na column, these are called the noble gases, and they usually have an oxidation number nga 0. 0 na siya. Meaning, anong 0 man? Di siya magpahilabot. Others ni siya. Meaning, di siya mudawat og electron. Di po siya mudawat og electron. So, they are unreactive. They tend not to react with other elements. Manhid ang mga noble gases. So, they do not react with other elements. So, kutob ra siya diri sa halogens. Okay? So, group 1, the alkali metals tend to lose 1 electron. So, it's usually ang ihang kaya nga mahatag nga electron is based on the group where it belongs. So, because this is group 1, so they will tend to lose 1 electron. So, the oxidation number is +1. And then we have alkaline earth metals has a tendency to lose 2 electrons. However, here sa outer transition metals, they often have more than 1 oxidation number, and they often form more than 1 compound with a given nonmetal. So, sa mga example ani niya, for example, iron. Iron could either have an oxidation number of +2, or it could be +3. Ferrous and ferric. For manganese, pwede +2, pwede +4, pwede +5, pwede +7. So, naa siya daghan pwede. Depende sa kaso, no? So, you can just look at them. The oxidation numbers, you can just look at them sa periodic tables if you cannot recall the oxidation number. So, this is a periodic table. You can directly identify nga kani dire +1, kani dire +2, no? Kani sila dire 0. So, this periodic table does not contain the oxidation numbers of the elements, but you can actually find periodic tables that contain the oxidation numbers of different elements. So, pwede mo gamit ato. Okay? So, this is an actual redox reaction, no? So, we have zinc and hydrogen. So, initially, on the reactant side, we have the oxidation number of zinc, that is 0. And we have the oxidation number of hydrogen, which is +1. And we can see that after the reaction, the oxidation number of zinc is +2. and the oxidation number of hydrogen is 0. So what happened to zinc? 0 to positive 2, meaning ni-increase. Ni-increase ang ihang oxidation number because there is a loss of electrons. And how many electrons were lost? Duha. So zinc undergoes oxidation. For hydrogen, it goes from positive 1 to 0, meaning it loses or it gains electron. So pila ka electron? Isa. But there are 2 hydrogen ions man, so mutong duha na ka electron. So kung kani siya si zinc isa, nihatag siya og electron balik. Isa ka electron diha, isa ka electron din ha. Asa man niya gihatag? Diri sa H+. So paghatag niya sa H+, ni form na dayon aning hydrogen gas. So zinc undergoes oxidation. There is a loss of electrons, and hydrogen undergoes reduction. There is a gain of electrons. So kung si zinc ni undergo oxidation, unsa siya? It is the reducing agent, and H+ is the oxidizing agent. Okay? So there are rules in assigning oxidation numbers. So these are the rules in assigning oxidation number. So di ta pwede magbuot-buot nga mo-assign ra tawag oxidation number based on what we see on the periodic table because there are rules there. So the first rule is that an atom in its elemental form will always have an oxidation number that is 0. Unsa may elemental form? For example, metals. The elemental form of metals is simply the element. So sodium, that's metal, solid, nara siya. For example, iron, solid, no? So ang ihang oxidation number kay 0. So we have to be, if not perfect, master this assigning of oxidation numbers because this is very crucial in balancing kanang redox reactions ang pag-assign. So importante kay ni siya diri dapita class. So you have to remember the rules in assigning oxidation numbers. For the halogens, they're usually diatomic. So for example, chlorine. So chlorine gas. So that's elemental form. Pwede iodine nga gas, or pwede oxygen nga gas. So these are the elemental forms of the different elements, and their oxidation numbers kay 0. So 0 na sila iyang oxidation. We usually put the oxidation number as a the superscript. So their oxidation numbers are 0. For any monoatomic ion, meaning it's an ion containing only one type of atom, the oxidation number equals the ionic charge. So this is the easiest one because you just have to look at the charge. For example, sodium ion. So the oxidation number is positive 1. That's ferrous, so that's 2+. That's negative 1. No? Mn 7+. So, kana siya dihang mga superscript din ha, muna siyang ihang mga oxidation numbers. So, for any monoatomic ion, the oxidation number equals the ionic charge itself. So, that's the oxidation number, that is the ionic charge as well. Here, so we have to remember this. Non-metals usually have negative oxidation numbers. So, di ba ang non-metal kay katong naa sa right side? So they tend to accept electrons, di ba? They usually have a negative oxidation number. Although they can sometimes be positive. Na ay cases nga pwede sila positive. So unsay mga rules to remember regarding nonmetals. So number 1, most of the time oxygen has an oxidation number of negative 2. Oxidation number of negative 2 except in peroxides. For example, peroxide H2O2, that is a peroxide. And in the case here, the oxidation number of oxygen is negative 1. Okay, for oxygen. The oxidation number of hydrogen is usually positive 1 when bonded to nonmetals, and negative 1 when bonded to metals. So like for example here, oxygen is a non-metal man. So meaning si hydrogen mo positive 1. Positive 1 when bonded to non-metals. So si hydrogen dire is positive 1. Okay? Pero kung ang pares pa niya dire kay metal, so negative 1 ni si hydrogen. Alright? Letter C. The oxidation number of fluorine is negative 1 in all compounds. So why libog si fluorine? Fixed siya. Loyal siya sa negative 1. It's always negative 1. Next, the other halogens have an oxidation number of negative 1 in most binary compounds. When we say binary compounds, meaning duha ka. It's a compound containing 2 elements only. Sodium chloride is a binary compound, no? Carbon dioxide is a binary compound. So, kadong mga halogens, kadong second to the last column, usually, they have an oxidation number of negative 1 in most binary compounds, but they have positive oxidation numbers when combined with oxygen. Like sulfur, So, we'll have an example, ninyo. Next is the sum of the oxidation numbers of all atoms in a neutral compound is 0. So, muna itong tanawon class. Nga, kung neutral gani ang compound, inig-add nato sa tanan nilang oxidation number, dapat 0. Pero, kung gani polyatomic ang ion, the sum of the oxidation numbers of all atoms in a polyatomic ion equals the charge of the ion itself. So, mura ni siya algebra nga mag-solve ta sa missing nga oxidation number. For example, kani, we have sodium chloride. So, sodium chloride, NaCl. So, as I mentioned there in the discussion, so, unsay unahon na to og tan-aw? Unsay unahon na to og assign og oxidation number? So, sodium belongs to group 1 and chlorine is a halogen. So, sa atong rule, kadong halogens, they most of the time have an oxidation number nga negative 1, but sometimes their oxidation numbers become positive if they are combined with oxygen. And then, if you look at the periodic table, sometimes napadjud na ilain nga pwede nga oxidation number ni chlorine. But sodium is fixed. It belongs to group 1 and it only has one oxidation number, and that is positive 1. Meaning si sodium, pwede ragid siya, dili siya mudawat og electron, pwede ragid siya muhatag og electron, no? Pila ka electron? Isa. So muna ang oxidation number ni sodium is fixed ragid na siya nga positive 1. And then because sodium chloride, unsa man ni siya, this is a neutral compound. And diba sa rule nga ang summation ko no sa tanan oxidation numbers kay equal to 0 for a neutral compound. Meaning, kung i-add nato ang oxidation ni sodium ug ang oxidation number ni chlorine, dapat equal to 0. So, meaning, si sodium is positive 1, 1, niya equal to 0. So, pila di ay si chlorine. So, chlorine has an oxidation number of negative 1. Okay? So, here, so this is an ion. So it's not a neutral compound anymore. This is a polyatomic ion. It's polyatomic because kano sa ka makaibaw kong ion kung naay charge dire, no? And we will know if it's polyatomic because it contains more than one type of atom there in the ion. So it's polyatomic because there are 2. So this is a perchlorate ion. So, ang pangutana, unsa nga element atong assignan og una og oxidation number? Is it chlorine or oxygen? So, kung tan-awon nato sa periodic table, daghang possible si chlorine. Nya, di ba niingon to siya? If the halogens are combined with oxygen, pwede siya mahimong positive ang iyang oxidation number. So, dili sa previous nga example, negative 1 man siya. So, dili siya all the time nga negative 1. But, for oxygen, most of the time, its oxidation number is negative 2, except kung peroxide. So, dili man siya peroxide, it's perchlorate man. So, meaning, ang oxidation number ni oxygen diri kay negative 2. So, naay isa ka chlorine, naay isa ka oxygen, o kung i-add na tong iyang oxidation numbers nila, it should be equal to negative 1, kay mo man i-charge diri. By the way, if it's negative 1 class, you don't have to put the number 1 anymore. Mura rasa na siya coefficient sa atong mga variables. So, substitute ta nga negative 2 ang oxidation ni oxygen, equals negative 1, so pila di ay si chlorine. So, i-transpose na to si kuan, si negative 2 sa pika, so mahimong positive 2. So, chlorine di ay here has an oxidation number of positive 1. And ma-check na nato. So, 1 minus 2 is negative 1. Diba? 1 minus 1 equals 0. Kay neutral compound man na siya. So, that's how we assign oxidation numbers. So, here, this is iodine. So, it's elemental in form. Wa gani na siya i-charge din na sa ibabaw class. Nya, siya ra gani na usa automatic nga iyang oxidation number kay 0. Next, so this is a neutral compound. As you can see, we have two elements there, and then we do not have a charge here, meaning this is a neutral compound. So this is sulfur dioxide. And then we have oxygen, so this is not a peroxide, so automatic nga iyang oxidation number ni oxygen kay negative 2. Now this time, unlike the previous example nga tagsa-tagsa ra sila or walay subscripts, this time na ay subscript, meaning na ay duha ka oxygen nga atoms. So, inig-add na to ana class, we are going to list depende sa iyang subscript kung pila ka buok. So, naay isa ka sulfur ug naay duha ka oxygen. But since this is a neutral compound, it's equal to 0. Nya, sa ato ding i-assign dayon nga oxygen kay negative 2 man siya. So, sulfur, 2 times negative 2, that's negative 4. Diba? And when you transpose to the other side, meaning the oxidation number of sulfur is positive 4. So, inig-check ni mo ana, this is positive 4, but this is negative 2, but you still have to multiply this by 2. So, negative 2 times 2, it's negative 4. So, positive 4 minus 4, it's equal to 0. So, sakto. So, you always have to check your answer. So, we have here hydrogen peroxide. So, this time it's a peroxide. So, if it's a peroxide, oxygen is negative 1. So, kay negative 1 siya, negative 1 times 2. So, duha ka hydrogen, duha ka oxygen. Duha ka hydrogen, duha ka oxygen. It's a neutral compound, so it's equal to 0. No? And then, tanawa. So, meaning kung 2 times negative 1, so pila si hydrogen? Kung 2H plus 2 times negative 1 equals 0, so 2H minus 2 equals 0, 2H equals 2, H equals positive 1. So, it's hydrogen here is positive 1 because sa rule pod nato, hydrogen is positive, diba? It's either positive 1 or negative 1. And it's positive 1 because it is combined with a non-metal. So, next, we have dichromate na ion. So, this time, it's a polyatomic ion. So, there are 2 chromium atoms plus 7 oxygen atoms. And it's a polyatomic ion whose charge is negative 2. So, again, this is not a peroxide. So, automatic nga ang atong oxygen has an oxidation number of negative 2. So, chromium is one of those metals wherein there are multiple oxidation numbers. So, we have to solve here kung pila gid siya. So, duha ka chromium. So, duha ka chromium minus 14 equals 2. So, duha ka chromium equals, pila man na siya? That is, sorry, this is negative 2. So, mahimo siyang 14 minus 2, and that is equal to 12. So, duha ka chromium equals 12, and then we divide both sides by 2. So, therefore, the oxidation number of chromium is positive 6. So, that is a polyatomic ion. Next, we have magnesium arsenate. So this is a neutral compound. And in the case here, class, we have to remember how to write chemical formulas. So, kani siyang magnesium arsenate, it's composed of two ions, the magnesium ion and the arsenate ion. So, the arsenate is ASO4 3 negative. So, diba, inigsulat na to ani, it's the crisscross rule. Nga kaning oxidation number dire, mahimo ni siyang subscript sa first nga ion. So, muna siya. Ug kaning oxidation number dire, mahimo ni siyang subscript sa ikaduha nga ion. And remember that we put a parenthesis here because mo man ni siya ang ion, ASO4 man siya. Dili man na pwede magtapad ang 4 ug ang 2 kay na may subscript dire. So di na sila pwede magtapad. So you have to put a parenthesis. Alright? Okay. So if we know the writing of the chemical formula, so automatic ma-identify na to nga, yes, magnesium Di has an oxidation number of positive 2. No? And here, in the arsenate ion, so we have oxygen. This is not a peroxide. So meaning the oxidation number of oxygen is negative 2. So na tayo magnesium. And then we have for oxygen, meaning unknown ang oxidation number ni arsenic. So muna isolvon. And because this is a neutral compound, so kwanta no, na ay tulo ka magnesium, asa man na tulo gikan diri sa subscript. So tulo ka magnesium plus pila man ka arsenic. So isa ra siya ka arsenic, pero kay gi-times man na siya og 2 class. Na may parenthesis. So duha ka arsenic plus, so here we have 4 ka oxygen pero i-times 2 pa siya dinhang naa sa gawas. So munang 8 ka oxygen, and because this is a neutral compound, that's equal to 0. So sa magnesium, positive 2 plus duha ka arsenic plus 8 ka oxygen kay negative 2 equals 0. So this is 6 plus 2 arsenic minus 16 equals 0. So 2 arsenic minus 10 equals 0. Diba? 6 minus 16 is negative 10. And then we transpose 10 to the right side. So 2As equals 10. And so arsenic is positive 5. And then just make sure that you check your answer if it's correct. And they should all sum up to 0. So we have aluminum nitrate, which is another neutral compound also. So giun sa pag-asagikan si aluminum nitrate, meaning kaning subscript dire mo ni siya oxidation number dire, no? And pila may subscript dire 1. So meaning ang nitrate oxidation number niya kay 1. So Al3+ og nitrate nga ion. So muna siya. So the oxidation number of aluminum is positive 3. And then this is not a peroxide obviously again. So the oxidation number of oxygen is negative 2. So we solve now for the oxidation of nitrogen. Oxidation number of nitrogen. So na ay isa ka aluminum plus tulo ka nitrogen. So asagikan again, there's only 1 here but we have 3 here outside, so we multiply, so that's 3. And then for oxygen, there is 3 inside, then we have to multiply by 3 sa gawas, so plus 9, and that's equal to 0. So we know that aluminum has an oxidation number of positive 3 plus tulo ka nitrogen plus 9 times negative 2 equals 0. So 3 plus 3n minus 18 equals 0. So 3 minus 18 is negative 15 equals 0. So 3n equals 15. So therefore the oxidation number of nitrogen is 5. Alright? So that's how you assign oxidation number. Another example. So we have calcium hydride. So this is a special case. So this is a case here where hydrogen is now combined with a metal. So calcium belongs to group 2, and the oxidation number of group 2 will always be positive 2. So na duha ka hydrogen, and this is a case again wherein the oxidation number of hydrogen is negative 1 because it is combined with a metal. So isa ka calcium plus duha ka hydrogen, and it's equal to 0 because it's a neutral compound. So we have calcium nga positive 2 plus duha ka hydrogen equals 0, and therefore hydrogen has an oxidation number of negative 1. And then we have manganese fluoride oxide. Manganese fluoride oxide. So here, usually, diba? Usually, sa mga previous mga examples, ang atong gisolve og last kay ang middle. But this is a different case here now because, number 1, fluorine will always have an oxidation number of negative 1. Number 2, this is not a peroxide, so the oxidation number of oxygen is negative 2. So there are many possible options for manganese, pwede 2, 4, 5, 7. So munang ato siyang isolve gyud kung pila siya. So isa ka manganese plus isa ka fluorine plus tulo ka oxygen, and that's equal to 0. So fluorine has an oxidation number of negative 1. Oxygen is negative 2. So minus 1, minus 6, therefore manganese has an oxidation number of positive 7.